Tripura, Tripura, Sri Tripura.
Tripura, Tripura, Sri Tripura.
Tripura, Tripura, Sri Tripura.
Tripura, Tripura, Sri Tripura.
Anandadayini Sri Tripura.
Anandadayini Sri Tripura.
Anandadayini Sri Tripura.
Anandadayini
Tripura, Sri Tripura. Sri Tripura. Sri Tripura. Sarva Vidya Swarupaya. Lakshmi Samslishta Vakshase. Madhupasana Lakshaya. Ayagrivaya Mangalam. Ayagrivaya Mangalam. Shankha-chakra Mahamudra. Pustakadyam Chaturbhujam. Sampurna Chandra Sankasham. Ayagrivam upasmahe. Ayagrivam upasmahe. Jnananandamayam Ramam. Nirmalasphatitakrutim. Adharam tattva vidyanam. Ayagrivayitam numaha. Ayagrivayitam numaha. Shankaracharya Navavataram. Vishveshwaram. Vishwagurum pranamya. Vedanta Shastra. Sravanalasana. Bodhaya kurve. Kimapi prabandham. Bodhaya kurve. Kimapi prabandham. Srimadhayagriva. Padavinda. Karunyamaranda. Rasaprasanga. Mandashayodharana. Baddha buddhi. Sidhantha Bindu. Vipulikaromi. Sidhantha Bindu. Vipulikaromi. The Ahankara, which is our very identification as the I, and again which is connected with all other related objects as mine. So this Ahankara, this ego, derives a grim pleasure and satisfaction from suffering. That is why, in true terms, if we look at the suffering of the people, mentally they might be suffering, but egoistically there will be grim pleasure and satisfaction inside. For the ego, that which is the very identification you and I. So this ego derives grim pleasure and satisfaction from the suffering and from all those things that lack integrity. What are those things? Desire, anger, grief, pride, guilt, shame, all these various kinds of emotions and feelings that we undergo, that we entertain. Whenever we entertain these things, the sign is there is no integrity. When we don't have integrity, we entertain these things. Integrity of our inner personality, integrity between the mind and intellect. When we are not integrous, we are prone to these things. Feeling of guilt, grief, anger, all these things, whatever we have referred just now. So, in these things, which are lacking in integrity, why are we entertaining them? Because the ego derives grim pleasure and satisfaction in all those things that lack integrity. And this pleasure or satisfaction that the ego derives is addictive. Many people devote their whole lives to this. What? Entertain all non-integrous things and get into suffering, and also motivate others to follow it. If we keenly observe our own ego in suffering, in anger, in pride, in various other things which we just now refer, then we will see that the ego is deriving this grim pleasure and satisfaction. This is what is called as the return for the ego, the payment for the ego. And it is a satisfying reward for the ego. And this satisfaction is an inner satisfaction. And it is also said that there is inner satisfaction in self-pity. People indulge in self-pity. They pity themselves. Why? There is this inner satisfaction. In hatred, there is inner satisfaction. In rage, in fear, in self-pity, rage, hatred, fear, there is this inner satisfaction which the ego derives. That's why it is not easy for the egos to get out of these things. They will sacrifice themselves, but they will not get out of this. Because the ego pretends to be the sole and the only support for the life of this individual. So the individual thinks like that. And the ego, in deriving this grim pleasure and satisfaction and all these negative emotions, when it is deriving this inner pleasure energizes and propagates these negative emotions. It energizes them. It makes them more strong, more sturdy, and then it propagates them. And this inner satisfaction or grim pleasure is a poor substitute for this ego, is a poor substitute for the joy of divinity, which otherwise can be experienced if we set aside this addictive indulging in this grim pleasure and satisfaction. When we observe ourselves, when we observe others, we will come to understand this. When people hold on to things egoistically, they don't let go of it. They may destroy each other, but they will hold on to those things. Not only one life, there are some people who live together, they will be stuck in that. divine, which is more graceful, beautiful. So what one has to do is to stop this mechanism, to stop this influence of getting indulged in this grim satisfaction, this inner pleasure. What we have to do is, what one has to do is to surrender this at the feet of God. Any God whom you like, to surrender this mentally at the feet of God. To tell to God that I am not going to indulge in this secret, inner, grim pleasure and satisfaction of the ego. I am surrendering it unto you. Once we start surrendering it, then the first thing that happens is the hold of these negative emotions on us becomes loose, gets weakened. Because the ego is surrendering. You and I as an individual are surrendering. Ego might be wanting it, but as Chidavasa, as the Jiva, who is having this Antakarana, who is a reflection in the Antakarana. So we are surrendering this. We have decided to surrender. Sit in front of God or mentally imagine God in front of us and say, this is what is happening, I am surrendering this unto you. So the ego's hold and the negative emotions hold on the ego holding on to them, that will become weakened. And slowly, the grip of the ego on them, their grip on the ego gets loosened. And then one more thing beautifully happens. Then, from where can we get satisfaction now? Earlier, the ego was deriving satisfaction by indulging in these non-integrous things. Holding on to it, thinking about it, talking about it, sharing with it, groupism because of it, fighting, complaining, filing cases, hitting each other, blaming each other, talking about this nonsense of it. All is ego satisfaction. Ego derives great pleasure and satisfaction in these things. But what it is losing? It is losing many things. So once we surrender it to God and leave it to God, then we have to look to God for then afterwards, whatever we want, we have to look to God for happiness, for pleasure and for joy. God will provide, God will give, because God has it in abundance. We have not been taking it from God because we are not seeking it. We are seeking this pleasure and satisfaction through the ego. If we set aside that ego, leave that ego, from where can we get this satisfaction, pleasure and joy? We will get it. Look at God and then hold on to God, and God will provide this pleasure, this satisfaction, this joy, much more greater. It is nowhere in comparison with this, what ego used to derive earlier before our surrender. We need to do this. Because whatever experiences the ego is gaining, thinking them to be real, it is not experiencing the world. Ego is experiencing only its own perceptions of the world. Please understand this. The ego does not experience the world as it is. The ego experiences its own perceptions of the world. Its perceptions it is experiencing, not the world. So that is why ego's perceptions are all distorted. They are neither genuine nor factual and actual. So it is better that one gets out of this. And also, the degree of the dominance of the ego on oneself meaning the Chidavasa, the Jiva. The degree of the dominance of the ego on oneself is depending upon the extent to which one identifies with the ego. To the extent we identify with the ego, as Jiva, as Chidavasa, to that extent it dominates us. If we start surrendering it at the feet of God because God's own power created it, if we start leading it to God, surrendering it to God, and then the dominance of the ego on us gets lessened. Slowly it will become lesser and lesser, and finally one day by His grace it will vanish. The ego loves to cling to these negativities. Sometimes people victimize themselves and wants to become a victim, and even becoming a victim also there is that inner great pleasure and satisfaction. In suffering, the ego derives this. All this can be overcome by the spiritual power. Only by the spiritual power. And that spiritual power descends into us when we start going through the scriptural understanding. That is why we are going through this understanding of the scriptures, the teachings of the scriptures. So, we will try to know few things about the way in which our mind connects to the external thing and internal thing and tries to gain knowledge, experience. Couple of things might be like a review, but few things are new in this initial few minutes of analysis which we are going to take up now. First one is Pramatru Chaitanya. Pramatru Chaitanya means Antahakarana Avachinna Chaitanyam, meaning the consciousness which is with the Antahakarana, internal organ. Consciousness that is with the internal organ. More vividly, it is Chidabhasa. It is the reflection of consciousness in the internal organ. More clear, it is Jiva. And as an example, it is glowing battery. It is like a glowing battery. A battery light which is glowing. Battery light, glowing battery light. Next one, Pramana Chaitanya. Pramana Chaitanya, it enters the Antahakarana Vritti and works with it. Whatever the thought of the object which is there in the mind called as Antahakarana Vritti, this enters there and works with it. It is like battery light focus. Pramana Chaitanya is glowing battery light. Now this Pramana Chaitanya is like glowing battery light focus. The beam, the focus. This is called as Vritti Chaitanya. Vritti Chaitanya. The third one is Vishaya Chaitanya. This Vishaya Chaitanya functions as the substratum of an object which is there in the world. If an object is visible, if an object is existing, that object exists because of the consciousness that is supporting that object. Vishaya is an object. Vishaya Chaitanya, the consciousness supporting that object, making that object exist, making that object visible, making that object be as it is, what it is, whatever it is. So that is Vishaya Chaitanya. And not only that, inside also there are things that are existing as Antakarana dharmas. Happiness is there, misery is there. So that also is a Vishaya, is a Vishaya of the mind, is an object in the mind. So that also exists only because it is supported by the consciousness there called as Vishaya Chaitanya. So Vishaya Chaitanya supports the external objects and internal objects which are there in the internal organs. So it supports them. Meaning it is the actual existence beneath the superficially existing things. Without that consciousness supporting either part or inner part of happiness, they will not be there. They cannot function, they cannot be there. Because mind by itself, objects by themselves are either jada, they cannot function by themselves unless and until they are touched by this consciousness called as Vishaya Chaitanya or the object consciousness. Consciousness is supporting these objects outside and inside. Actually, if we look, what exactly is there in place of what is this consciousness? What exactly is there in place of that happiness, thought of happiness inside? Is this consciousness? If this is not supporting, that will not survive. This is real, that real, that is apparently illusory. And that is treated by us as real. This we don't see it because that is superimposed upon the consciousness. So we don't see the consciousness, we see only the superimposed thing. When the movie is superimposed upon the screen, we see only the movie and not the screen. When the silver is superimposed upon the pearl shell, we see only the silver and not the pearl shell. When the snake is superimposed upon the rope, we see the snake and not the rope. Similarly, when these things are superimposed outside or inside, we see the objects and not the consciousness which is supporting those objects, without which these objects will not be able to either survive or function or even be what they are as they are. So, whenever we see an object, then and there is an opportunity, according to the great masters of Vedanta Shastra, that instead of seeing the object, you can see the consciousness. Whenever we are experiencing happiness or misery, sadness, or whatever rage, anger, whatever thing is we are experiencing as a form of a thought inside the mind, Vishayakara vritti, Sukhakara vritti, Dukkakara vritti, whatever vritti we are experiencing, that vritti is in the shape of that object and that is there inside the mind. Instead of getting identified with that vritti, we can see underneath it, we can see below it, we can see the substratum of it, which is consciousness. So this is Vishaya Chaitanya, without which no Vishaya can be experienced. No object can be found in a state wherein we can experience it. All is possible, made possible because of the support of the consciousness, inside, outside. So Pramatra Chaitanya, Pramana Chaitanya, Vishaya Chaitanya. Little bit more of Pramana Chaitanya. This Pramana Chaitanya, which is the second one in the process of the three which we have seen, which is the vritti in the antakarana, it is a thin, liquid-like effulgence, brilliance, brightness. It is a bright, luminous, brilliant, effulgent liquid. It is like that. So, what happens? Whatever object that is there in front of us, through our sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, this liquid-like effulgence which is there, it goes out, it touches it, and takes the shape of it, and comes back and reports to the Pramatra Chaitanya, who is the Chidabhasa or the Jiva or the knower or Antakarana Avachinna Chaitanya who is there inside. It reports. That is how we know about things. That is how we understand the objects that are there outside. Through our sense organs, through our ears, through our eyes, through our nose, tongue, skin. So this goes out, touches them, takes the shape of them, comes back and reports to the Pramatra Chaitanya, the Jiva inside. That is how the Jiva will be able to understand what it is. So, there is the Sannikarsha, meaning the combination or mixing of objects and indriyas through this vritti, through this vritti Chaitanya or Pramana Chaitanya. This is also called as Bahya vritti. But as far as Sukha and Dukkha are concerned, they are all illumined by the Sakshi, the witness only inside. Now, more elaboration from Ramaraya Kavi about Vritti Chaitanya. How it goes and how it spreads around in the object and how it connects. There is a large lake, and from that lake, because there is so much of water, a canal is dug. So the water from the large lake flows through the canal, a small canal. A narrow small canal it goes, and then this canal leads the water into the field, the fields. There are fields spread over in a large area, and the water enters the fields and spreads around in the fields, all over in the fields, and now it is in the shape of the field. The water which was in the shape of a lake came through the canal and now spread over in the fields, now it has taken the shape of the field. Like that, this Pramana Chaitanya, Vritti Chaitanya, goes out through the indriyas of canals like indriyas, which is there, lake like Antakarana, goes out and takes the shape of that object. Another example Ramaraya Kavi gives is from the furnace where there is so much of fire, burning fire from the furnace. The fire from the furnace gets into the iron ball which is there near to it, iron ball, and then it heats up, that burns that iron ball, and then afterwards that iron ball also becomes red hot, burning like fire. It becomes a fireball. Nobody sees that as iron ball later on, but they see it as a fireball. Like that, the consciousness which is there in the Brahmana Chaitanya goes out through this vritti and then takes the shape of the object. So that is why this is called as Taijasa Dravya. This vritti Chaitanya is called as Taijasa Dravya. Bright, splendid, luminous liquid. Bright, splendid, luminous liquid. It goes out through the Indriyas like a battery light focus. That's why that example was given. Battery light focus. It goes there, that focus, the light from the battery focus, it goes and falls on the object. Like that it goes out. Taijasa Dravya. Bright, splendid, luminous liquid. It is like the rays of the sun, the beams of the sun. From there they come and then fall and they illumine the object. Like that, it reaches out to the object, takes the shape of the object, form of that object, and this taking the shape of that object, form of that object is called as modification of the very mind. That is called as a vritti. The mind is modified in the shape of that object, takes that shape of that object. So the mind alone goes up in the form of that vritti, which is Taijasa Dravya, and takes the shape and comes back and reports to the Paramatma Chaitanya, the Jiva, the knower inside, then the knower knows. Otherwise the knower never knows. So when these three, Paramatma Chaitanya, Pramana Chaitanya and Vishaya Chaitanya meet at one place, Paramatma Chaitanya, Pramana Chaitanya, Vishaya Chaitanya, object, the Paramatma, the knower, the Pramana, the vritti, the knower is there, the vritti goes out and then meets. When all three meet inside, when all three meet at one place, that is called as direct perception or pratyaksha pramana. Pratyaksha, direct pratyaksha we see, direct experience we get through this only. Pratyaksha, pratyaksha anubhava, direct experience we get only in this manner. The antakarana dharmas that are there, inside, happiness, misery, all that, even though the thought takes the shape of that, there it is not the jiva that illumines them, it is the sakshi that illumines them. The sakshi which is there inside, that witness illumines these things inside. Because there is no indriya getting connected with them, it is only in the mind that sukha, dukkha, all other things that are illumined by the witnessing consciousness that is there inside. And then identifying with it, the jiva says, Aham Sukhi, Aham Dukhi, and all that. I am happy, I am miserable, I am sad, I am peaceful, I am disturbed, I am elated, I am jubilant, I am depressed, like that. These are the thoughts that ego undergoes because of the identification with those thoughts. In the place of happiness and misery, actually the real thing that is there is only Chaitanya or the consciousness. Actually that consciousness. But supported by the consciousness, the happiness, the misery, the vritti, all these things are there. So what we are doing is we are identifying as a jiva with the vritti and not recognizing the consciousness under the vritti. That is why the sukhakara, dukkakara, we get so much emphasis in these things. Thought taking the form of sadness, form of happiness, form of peacefulness, form of disturbance. So we are identified with that and we are lost in it. But underneath it there is consciousness. If we recognize that, then we will get out of the clutches of this identification of the jiva with these things. So we need to know about these things so that later on we will understand the other things which are analyzed with this basis much more easily. In an examination, two students, Rob and Tom, both of them appeared. And there were 100 questions. That was for selecting candidates for a post of a manager. So the interviewing officer conducted a written examination also after various other tests. Finally, 2 candidates only appeared for it, could come to that stage. So they wrote. And afterwards, he corrected the answer sheet within few minutes because of the new technology. And then he called them and started talking to them and said, both of you have committed same number of mistakes. Both of you have written same number of wrong answers. Same number of wrong answers, same number of mistakes. Exactly the same. So both of you have the same marks. But I am giving this job to Rob and not to Tom. But the Tom got enriched and said, if you have the same number of mistakes and wrong answers, how can you give it to him and not to me? Then he gave the answer sheet and then asked him to check. Question number 46, Rob answered, I do not know the answer. You wrote, me neither. Me neither. Meaning what? You copied from me. So you are answering only looking into his answers. So that is the reason why I could discover this and I am going to give it to you. So there is this kind of mechanical involvement in dealing with the external objects and getting fascinated by the external globe and not being able to recognize that very substratum which is supporting those objects. And even these, when they take the shape of that object, the mind also, the thought also is supported by the consciousness. And inside the one who tries to know, there also the consciousness only supports that Brahman to Chaitanya also. The knower also is supported by consciousness. Even though the mind is trying to know, Jiva is trying to know, the Jiva is supported by the consciousness. So, instead of getting identified with those things, instead of we getting into an identity crisis with those things, better we understand what is our original source and what is the original basis for all those things. In an office, a new rule was passed that it is compulsory for all the people who apply for leave to mention the reason, the excuse. To mention the excuse. Why? Why you should be excused for applying for this leave. So, since then, various kinds of funny excuses started coming. The management was taking note of all these things. Somebody said, my dog was not well. Another fellow said, I was afraid the cat will not be fine today, so I took the cat. So, various funny things. And one person said, I have no hot water because of power cut. So, I am applying for leave, I am not coming to the office. So, like that, many things. So, one person sent his application. I am not coming to work today. And tomorrow when I come, I will give the excuse. Meaning what? He has to think about it now. What excuse he has to give? I am applying for leave today. Compulsory is rule that you have to have excuse. Tomorrow when I come, I will give. There was another fellow, very funny. He called up the boss in the evening. Because in the morning he was supposed to report to the work because there was an important meeting. He could not. When the boss tried to call, he did not answer. So in the evening he calls boss and says, Boss, when I was coming to the office, workplace, I took a wrong turn. And then I kept going. And then afterwards I decided that I should keep going. That's all. That's why I could not come. Who knows where we will take wrong turn, which object, which experience, which identification. Anything can become a wrong turn, and afterwards that ego decides to keep going, and we will keep going. That's all. And very rarely people do return to the same level of consciousness where they were in. But it's not easy thing. So we need to be very clear about these things so that we come to understand the main causes of identification and how we can switch over from that to recognizing of the consciousness. So the Jiva or the Chidabhasa, now we are getting into the Sidhantha Bindu point number 82. So the Jiva undergoes transmigration because he is under the control of his limiting agent. Limiting agent is Upadi, it is the Antakarana. So the Jiva is undergoing the transmigration from body to body. But the Supreme Ishvara controls his limiting agent and has the qualities of omniscience. Yesterday we saw a lot about Jiva and Ishvara. So Jiva undergoes transmigration. Ishvara never undergoes any transmigration because he is omniscient. The reason is because he controls whatever limiting agent that is there, the Ajnana that is there, the Maya that is there. He is not a slave to it, he is not controlled by it, he controls it. Jiva is controlled by it, enslaved by it. So that is the reason why Jiva undergoes transmigration, Ishvara never undergoes any transmigration. Avidya or ignorance, it covers the all-pervading self. The pure consciousness which is all-pervading, avidya covers that. One of the disciples asked his guru, how I can understand from a very gross standpoint, a low level of thinker standpoint, how am I to understand this? Please tell me. So for the sake of that person, people like Madhusudana Saraswati have given this example. Suppose, see now, you are standing outside the kutia and seeing the sun which is glowing brightly in the sky. The sun, according to the normal understanding, is many times bigger than the earth, and it is very far, so it looks small, but it is so bright. Now, if in front of your eyes, while looking at the sun, if you place one finger, what will happen? You will not be able to see the sun. The finger covering the orbit of the sun. Can the finger cover? Can the finger cover the orbit of the sun? It cannot. But still, it will appear as if in front of your eye, this is there. The whole orbit of the sun is covered. Like that. Such a big sun is covered by little finger. We don't see it, that's why it's covered. Covered from our view. But we can't see that sun. Similarly, the all-pervading pure consciousness is covered by avidya. From the jiva standpoint, the jiva has to see that consciousness is covered by avidya. So it conceals the pure consciousness. So avidya covers the substratum and then afterwards becomes modified into this universe. So veiling and projecting are the powers of this avidya, avarana, vikshepa. Veiling and then projecting. Because Maya is a transformative material class, parinami upadana karana. So then it goes on becoming everything that is there in the world, like mud becoming pot and various other items, like gold becoming ornaments and various other things. Then Madhusudana Saraswati says, since consciousness is like a lamp which illumines everything whichever comes in its range, this consciousness is illumining all the modifications of the Maya. its range, it illumines. But the range of pure consciousness has no limit. So the pure consciousness illumines the whole universe. How does it illumine? It illumines the whole universe without depending upon any means of knowledge. Normally for a jiva depends upon internal organ, and jiva has to go through the mind, and mind has to go out and the form of a thought and take the shape of the object and come back and report to the knower, and then the jiva understands. But for the pure consciousness, it need not take the help of internal organ, any means of knowledge, because it illumines everything without any dependency upon, without any requirement or necessity of the medium of knowledge or this mechanism of knowledge or mind. It is not required. Pure consciousness directly illumines all these things. That is why the pure consciousness is called as omniscient. Sarvagna, all-knowing. Jiva, alpagna, little knowing. But depends upon mind. And mind, as such, it cannot focus on 10 things at the same time. One thing at a time. One sense organ focusing on one thing at a time, other sense organ move. Mind, jiva, alpagnatva. But the pure consciousness, all knowing at the same time. Because it is everything. Without this instrument called as antakarana, upadi called as antakarana, byproduct the maya called as antakarana. That is why pure consciousness is all knowing, Ishvara is all knowing, Paramatma is all knowing, God is all knowing. Before we could think that we have to keep our thought as a secret within ourselves, he knows it already. Before, without his illuminating, how can I know that it is a secret? I have to illuminate and I have to know that it is a secret, no? He already knows it. Without he illuminating, how can I know? He already knows. That is why one who has attained to that state of Godhood or avatara of God, they know it. That is all. The avatara knows it. That is all. God, when he has descended as the all-knowing principle, he knows all. At the same time, that's it. There is no need to say anything, but he knows, he is aware of everything. So then, there is no need for any means of knowledge for the pure consciousness. That need for means of knowledge is only in the case of the jiva, because jiva is limited by the intellect, which is the upadhi of the jiva, without which the jiva cannot do anything. So that is why our capacity to know is very limited to one particular thing at one particular point of time. That is how it is. But Ishvara, who is omniscient, knows everything all the time. Once the boss of the organization, then general manager and senior manager, all three of them took a chance to go into the ruins of historical monuments for a change for their voting. So they went and they came across one old lamb. They came across the old lamb, one of them from Britain. Then a genie came up and said, a boon for each one of you. So immediately the general manager, without even consulting the boss, he generally has to consult the boss in the presence of the boss at least, said, I want to go to Bahama Islands, and I want to go to Bahamas and get into a fast moving boat and have no worries of any kind. The genie said, Tadastu. He was gone. He was not seen. Then the senior manager, also without consulting the boss, immediately said, I want to go to Miami, Orlando, USA. And lots of cocktail parties and so much of food and lot of girls around. He was gone. Then now general manager looked at the genie, boss looked at the genie and genie looked at the boss. The boss said, wait for a while. He looked at the watch, he thought and said, by lunchtime, I want both these guys back. That's all. He gave some time for them to enjoy. By lunchtime, I want these guys back. Because in the morning, early morning, they set out for the exploration. They had to come back. Where they can go back. So whatever thought we have of experiencing pleasure in the world, it has to come back here to finally gain that experience. Only with the support of the Chaitanya who is there inside, then only that can be known. The whole world, wherever it goes, unless and until it is supported by the consciousness, it cannot gain any kind of such an experience. So it is very important for us to know how the mechanism of thought works. Whatever thought goes out, when it comes back, it gives various kinds of experiences, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes horrible, sometimes very pleasurable. Like in a company, there was one workshop that was being conducted, how to manage emergency situations. So, the one who was conducting the workshop asked one of the candidates who was worker in the company, suppose you get a letter bomb delivered to you. A letter bomb, the postman gets it. And that is a letter bomb. How do you respond in emergency situation? And this man coolly says, I will write on it, return to the sender. Return to the sender. It goes back. So, whenever the ego gets all these proposals of negativities, of non-integrous things, suffering, misery, and negative emotions, the jiva should say, these are all bombs, thought bombs. Return to the center. I am not ready to identify with them. I am not going to identify. Return. They have to go away because the jiva doesn't want to identify. The Paramatma Chaitanya decides not to identify. Do not identify. Knowing very well that even the basis for this Paramatma Chaitanya, the jiva, the lower, is that supreme consciousness which is functioning inside the Pratyagama and the main consciousness underneath it. Then, there is an objection in the scriptural discussion. If there is only one consciousness in all, then everybody must be able to see everything at the same time. If there is one consciousness in all, everybody must be able to see everything at the same time, like the consciousness. Nice objection. Objection also is very intelligent objection. The answer is because the mindset of each jiva is different. The mind of each jiva is different. So the experience of each jiva is different from that of others. Consciousness is one, but the minds are different. That is why, because the upadhi for the jiva is the mind. Each mind is different. Different texture, different quality, different vasana, different samskaras, different thoughts, different emotions, different levels, different grades, different percentages of purity, impurity. So, because of this, all are different. So now, in the Sidhantha Bindu 86, point number 86, Madhusudana says, the part of the mind which is with the body is called the ego, is known as the agent or karta. So he wants to classify certain things. What is a karta? The part of the mind which is with the body is called as the ego, which is called as the karta. The part that extends like a stick which is called cognition resulting from a mental modification, whatever we have seen just now in different words. Vritti-jnana. Cognition resulting from a mental modification, vritti-jnana, is known as the action. That is the action, kriya. What is this kriya? You know that cognition goes out and then mental modification, all that is kriya. And who is the karta? The one who is there, ego, ahankara, the karta. Ahankara considers himself as the karta, the doer, the enjoyer, whatever it is, there is the karta, the doer. And then the vritti-jnana is the kriya. And then the third one, the part of the mind that pervades the object and which makes the pot, etc., the object of our knowledge, is called the capacity to manifest. The capacity to manifest. So, the consciousness will support that object. Our part of the mind that goes and pervades that object, which makes that pot to manifest, become the object of our knowledge, is called the capacity to manifest. That is called as abhivekti yogyatvam. Abhivekti yogyatvam. Capacity to manifest. That is the capacity to manifest. So, the karta, which is the ego, the kriya, which is the vritti-jnana, the abhivekti yogyatvam, which is the capacity to manifest. Now, relating these things, karta is called as the pramata, karta is called as the mover, vritti-jnana or kriya is called as means of knowledge, that is called as pramana, and then the capacity to manifest or abhivekti yogyatvam is called as knowledge, which is called as pramiti. Pramata, pramana, pramiti. So pramiti means the knowledge which we gain. Because the object is manifested because of this part went there and then it touched the object and then finally cleared the covering which was there, covering the consciousness which is supporting the object. So the object manifested, so we know. Earlier the object did not manifest, now the object manifested. So now we can say the object is there. Earlier we said object is not there because I don't know whether it is manifesting or not. So this pramata, pramanam, pramiti, just as we saw pramata, pramanam, and then we saw the beautiful supporting consciousness, Vishaya Chaitanyam, like that here is also important. So then, Madhusudana Saraswati says, I have heard that somebody said something about a meeting which is very important to many people. This meeting, that meeting, committee meeting, board meeting, member meeting, all that. Somebody said, the percentage of the work that a normal worker puts forth in a meeting, the percentage of the work a normal worker puts forth in the meeting is on an average only 25% in all the meetings. Individually, the person is left to oneself with guidance, he may put forth 100% work. But in meetings, only 24% work. And again it was said that the odds of the participant in the meeting not knowing why he is there for, the odds of the participants in the meeting not knowing why he is there for are 1:3. 1 out of every 3 people doesn't know why he is there in the meeting. That is how our meetings are conducted. What they individually cannot do or take up, they come together collectively and decide that it cannot be done. Somebody said that. That might be the result of the meeting. So all the meetings are on thoughts only, and then all thoughts only go around and then come back as more refined thoughts, which we call as decision, and then make a note of it and circulate again as minutes of the meeting. This is all thought work. So then, a vritti of the mind not only brings about the connection between the knower consciousness and the object, but in addition, it removes the veil of avidya covering that object consciousness. So, the vritti brings about a connection between knower consciousness, Paramatma Chaitanya, and the object, Vishaya Chaitanya. But also, it removes the covering, the veil which is covering the object consciousness, the consciousness which is supporting that object, and then makes object capable of reflecting. Only then the object can be perceived by us. Only when this Pramartha Chaitanya, with the help of Vritti Chaitanya, and then the Vritti uncovers the veil on the object is revealed, and then only I can say that that object is existing for me. So, at Vritti Chaitanya, Vritti removes the veil of an object consciousness and then makes that object consciousness reflect the consciousness and appear to us as a manifested object or a visible object, so that we can perceive. Applying the same thing, Madhusudana Saraswati says, in case of Brahman also, where avidya has covered, veil of avidya avarana for Brahman, Vritti, Brahmakara Vritti, removes the veil that is there around the Brahman, and then Brahmakara Vritti makes us know that Brahman. That is what Madhusudana said. In view that Brahman is the cause of the universe, the purpose of the Vritti is to connect with lower consciousness and for removing the covering. If we say, in that view, according to one view, Brahman is the cause of the universe. Brahman has caused this universe. So there the Vritti, how does it function? The Vritti connects the lower consciousness with the object consciousness and removes the veil that is there in the object consciousness, so that the object is manifested. In another view, where they say that Jiva is the cause of the universe, because we have seen various views of the masters, Jiva is the cause of the universe, that Vritti is only for removing the veil of ignorance. It removes the veil of ignorance and then it comes to know about it. The mind becomes modified in the form of an object only when the modification is brought about by Pramana Chaitanya, that Vritti. Illusory object like nacre silver are cognized directly by the witness consciousness, Sakshi Pratyaksha, it is not a modification of the mind. Because a silver is seen in the seashell, it is not through a modification of the mind it is known, but it is directly perceived by, witnessed by the witness consciousness we come to know about. So then it is a avidya vritti that veils the silver. So through avidya vritti, which is veiling the silver, the witness consciousness only directly illumines it. Then Madhusudana Saraswati attempts here to explain about this avarana. The ignorance which operates before the rise of the mental modification or vritti generated by pramana, because this pramana chaitanya or vritti jnana or vritti chaitanya goes there and then removes that veil of the object. Before it operates, ignorance has the capacity to create a notion that a particular object does not exist. The ignorance has got the capacity to create a notion in us that a particular object does not exist. So it is not perceptible. Even when the object exists, it creates a notion in us that it does not exist. So it is not perceptible. That is called as veil or avarana. Avarana or veil is the capacity of ignorance which creates a notion in us that an object does not exist, even when that object exists. Brahman exists, but it creates a notion in that it is not there. So ignorance of any object is like that. It covers so that we don't know that the object is there. It has the capacity. That is the capacity of ignorance. Whatever existing, it creates a notion that it is not existing. And what can we say? Even in misunderstandings also, when somebody is loving us so much, we don't know that the person loves, so it creates a misunderstanding that there is no love for that person or me. What happens? Only somebody else has to clear, or they have to sit down and clear, then only the ignorance will be cleared with the help of knowledge. Same thing here also. So, when a vritti arises, the ignorance has created a notion that the object is not existing, so object is not manifest, the object is not there for us, because of the ignorance created notion. Now when the vritti arises, the capacity of the ignorance to create such a wrong notion is stultified. It is stopped temporarily. So it is as good as the ignorance is not existing, even though it does exist. So when the vritti arises, that vritti stultifies that ignorance. Even though ignorance is existing, it will be as if it is not existing. So what happens there? So it is rendered incapable of achieving its purpose of veiling that object. Therefore, it is said to be suppressed. This is not a Mula Ajnana, but it is Tula Ajnana, Tula Ajnana or Tula Ajnana, which covers objects. We will see it later on, but each object is covered by ignorance till the vritti reveals it. That is how objects we don't know that they are existing also, because till that vritti reveals it. But as long as we come to know, as a knower, when we play the role of a knower, when we are knowing that object, that ignorance is removed, and the moment that we go away from that object, again that ignorance covers. So the model ignorances are many. Primal ignorance is one, that is called as Mula Avidya, which is called as main Avidya or Maya. We will come to that later, but this is what Madhusudana Saraswati is trying to say. So, the important thing is, when that ignorance of an object is destroyed, somebody raises an objection. Suppose pot is there, but the veil of the pot is removed. Now I know the pot manifests to me. Now why not I know Brahman at the same time? Then it is said, we need to not think of that as a jiva, because jiva is limited by the mind, capacity of the mind to know. The same mind, when it is purified by Brahmakarvati, then we come to know, as consciousness, we come to know the consciousness that it is Brahman and the very beautiful. Continuing further, now we will go take the help of Ramaraya, Kavi, Sidhantha, Sindhu, and few points we went ahead in Madhusudana Saraswati, then we will also see what Ramaraya Kavi said about it. Sidhantha Sindhu, point number 5.3, because both the things that go in same sequence, sometimes they go in a different way also. So the consciousness is like the light of the lamp. It spreads over in the house and it illumines all objects. How is consciousness? Like light of the lamp. Light of the lamp spreads around in the house and illumines all objects. Consciousness also spreads around and illumines all the objects. So Paramatma is that self-luminous light which illumines whole world. Light of the lamp is lit light which illumines the objects. And similarly, when we understand these two things, then here Ramaraya Kavi presents this beautifully. Bhasakatvam and Bhasyam. Beautifully presents it. Bhasakatvam means illuminator, Bhasyam means illumined. Bhasakatvam means veliginchedi, Bhasyam means veliginpabadedi. So illuminator and illumined. The illumined world, the whole world is illumined by Paramatma. Paramatma is the Bhasakatvam, illuminator, and world is Bhasyam. The whole world is illumined. Whole world is illumined by Paramatma. But the illumined is illumined by the light, self-luminous light of Paramatma. The illumined might have dirt there, filth there, impurity there, negativity there, but none of these things will touch the illuminator. Can they touch the illuminator? When the sun in the sky illumines the filth in a pond or a lake or a gutter, without that light the gutter will not be illumined. But will the dirt in the gutter or in a canal ever touch the light of that sun? And sun actually, it cannot. Similarly, the Paramatma illumines everything, without whom nothing can be illumined. Bhasakatva, Paramatma, Bhasya is the world, Bhasakatvam, Bhasya relation, Bhasya Bhasakatva relationship. In that relationship, only illumination is possible. Nothing will touch the Paramatma. Nothing will influence the Paramatma. But without him, nothing is illuminated. Without him, nothing can be known. Without him, nothing can be experienced. So, this is a very beautiful point here. The whole illumined world is MITHYA and has no attachment to Brahman. So Brahman, from the Brahman standpoint, has no attachment whatsoever with the world, because the whole world that is illumined is MITHYA and there is no question of an attachment. And And the one who discovers that there is self-luminous principle inside, one who disidentifies with the ego and disidentifies the Chidavasa with the ego, and then Chidavasa understands and reflection of the self-luminous principle and looks at the self-luminous principle and says, hey, I am not this reflection, I am the self-luminous principle. Since then, there is no attachment whatsoever for that self-luminous principle of consciousness, which till then was functioning like a jiva. Now it has merged into the self-luminous principle and it only illumines everything. And in Sureshwara's Vartikas and also in Naishkarmya Siddhi, the same principle he says with a little bit of different words, Avabhasaka, Avabhasya Sambandha, revealed relationship. In Beyond Suffering series of the talks which are based upon Naishkarmya Siddhi, this is very elaborately explained. So, revealed relationship. The self is a revealer, the world is revealed. Everything is revealed. Sukha, Dukkha, Ahamruti, all are revealed. The revealer is the self. The revealed can never touch the revealer as long as the relationship of revealer revealed is there. Revealer relationship, nothing can touch. Nothing can. Revealer has no interest in revealing except illuminating it. But Upakara Sambandha, where there is usefulness in the object and the one who is using it, that relationship as mentioned by Shankaracharya, the moment there is a thought, hey, I am illuminating so many things, maybe there is something in something. Gaya, revealer Gaya, then the utility based fellow आ गया. क्या ही फायदा है इसमें? देखेंगे गया, पता? Revealer gone and the identifier started. I want to gain something, an experience out of that. This whole subject is explained very deeply in the talks, CDs or MITHYAs are available, titled as Beyond Suffering. But here there is a reference by Madhusudana Saraswati, so I am citing this. So Madhusudana Saraswati also said, and Ramaraya beautifully brings it out, Bhasakatvam Bhasyam. Beautiful, illuminator, illuminate. Very beautiful. The moment I am experiencing suffering, I can say, instead of Jiva experiencing suffering, experience, I can say, revealer, reveal. Illuminator, illuminate. Finished. Suffering, yes, that is illumined. I am illuminator. What relationship? Nothing. Only I am illuminating suffering. So what? That is all. When I forget about that, I get forget. So, this is very important. So, Brahman is always the revealer. Paramatma is always the revealer. So, that is why our great spiritual masters interpreting the scripture said, it is the Maya that manifested out of Brahman as the Shakti of Brahman takes care of the Srishti with the help of Ishvara. That is all. So, Brahman himself is not participating in the Srishti because Brahman is doing the Nirakara Parabrahma. Why he is participating? As Sadhuna has given this birth only to the Shakti, afterwards the Ishvara and then this Maya take care of the creation. So that is why it is said that Brahman has never taken up the Srishti. His Upadhi only has taken it, but only due to Parampara Sambandha relationship is there. We say Brahman is Jagat Karana, actually Maya is Jagat Karana. But he said, Kutastha Chaitanyam does not have the need of internal organ. Beautifully Ramaraya also said, Kutastha Chaitanya is that unchanging consciousness inside us doesn't need mind. Mind is not needed for it to know anything, to illuminate anything. Even Kala, time also is illuminated by the Chaitanya, Kutastha Chaitanya. Time also is an object which is of illumination for this Chaitanya. So the Chaitanya has no time. Time also is illuminated by Chaitanya only. So then there is no need for waiting for something, looking out for something, expecting for something, requiring something. Nothing, no relationship with time. The consciousness, Kutastha Chaitanya doesn't wait for time, doesn't look for time, doesn't require time, doesn't need time. As a jiva, always time. But as consciousness, even time is illuminated by it. time, it doesn't need time. So that is why Sarva Bhasaka Chaitanya, which illumines all, is Satya Chaitanya, is Sat, that is the reality, and that Sat is Sarvajna, all-knowing. That is all-knowing principle. It knows everything. It illumines everything. It knows everything. And it knows Tarka, it knows Vyakarana, it knows Vedantas, it knows Atma Dharmas. All of them you might know, but all these things Jiva knows. But as far as pure consciousness is concerned, it only illumines Jiva, so that Jiva knows all these things. From the standpoint of pure Brahman, all these things are not required. But from the standpoint of the Jiva, all these things are required to gain purity, to attain real level. So consciousness gives the mind the capacity to know all these things. Use the Jiva the capacity to know all these things. For consciousness, no scriptures are necessary, no mind is necessary, no mechanism of mind is necessary, no functioning of internal organ is necessary. Because it is self-luminous, all-knowing, and it is the only reality. Iyam bhurnavanapi Iyam bhurnavanapi Toyam na tejo Toyam na tejo Navayur nakham napi Navayur nakham napi Takkarya jatam Takkarya jatam Yadesha madhishkana Yadesha madhishkana Bhutam vishuddham Bhutam vishuddham Tadekam param Tadekam param Sattadevamasmi Sattadevamasmi Tadekam param Sattadevamasmi Iyam bhurnavanapi toyam na tejo Navayur nakham napi takkarya jatam Yadesha madhishkana bhutam vishuddham Tadekam param Sattadevamasmi Tadekam param Sattadevamasmi. And because of the revealer, the revealed Sambandha, illuminator, illumined Sambandha, from that standpoint, if you look at it, in Sarva Vedanta, Sidhantha, Sara, Sangraha, Shankaracharya says, Iyam bhurnavanapi toyam na tejo Navayur nakham napi takkarya jatam Yadesha madhishkana bhutam vishuddham Tadekam param Sattadevamasmi Iyam bhurnavanapi toyam na tejo. All the world of names and forms, how to differentiate this world of names and forms of the Atman, how to separate the illumined from the illuminator, the revealed from the revealer. This is the process. Iyam bhurnavanapi toyam na tejo. I am not the earth. Iyam bhurna. I am not the earth. I am not the water. I am not the fire. Iyam bhurnava na api toyam na tejo. Na api toyam, not the water. Na tejo, not the fire. Navayur nakham napi takkarya jatam. Navayu, I am not the air. Nakham, I am not the ether. I am not the space. Na api takkarya jatam. I am not the effects of Panchabhutas. Navayur nakham napi takkarya jatam. I am not the effect of Panchabhutas. I am not any one of these Panchabhutas, nor a combination of the Panchabhutas. I combine the effect of these Panchabhutas. Yadesha madhishkana bhutam vishuddham. Yadesha madhishkana bhutam vishuddham. Tadekam param Sattadevamasmi. Tadekam param Sattadevamasmi. But I am the support and the substratum for all these Panchabhutas. Yat esha Madhusudana Bhutam Vishuddham. Pure, spotless, clean support, substratum of all these bhutas, of all these five elements am I. I am not any one of these five elements. I am not a combined effect of these five elements. I am the substratum, pure support or substratum of all these elements. And Tadekam Param Satta Deva Asmi. I am Tadekam, one without a second, the non-dual. There is nobody else. Only one, Tadekam. Param, the supreme, Sat, reality. Deva Aham Asmi. I am that supreme real God, supreme real Brahman. That supreme, that one supreme real Brahman am I. That is the meaning. Tadekam Param Satta Deva Aham Asmi. In other words, I am that Sachidananda Brahman. Na Shabdo Na Rupam. Without me, nothing can be there. I am substratum for all these things. I am not like a jiva who is bound by these things, who has desires for these things, who are compelled by these things, who is stuck in these things, who is constantly chasing these things. No, I am only the substratum of these things. Tadekam, Tadekam Param Satta Deva Aham Asmi. I am that pure, one reality, real God. Alone am I. That one pure real God, that one pure real Brahman, alone am I. That is it. The highest Brahman, alone am I. If we can separate the world, reveal, the illumined, from the illuminator in this manner, then these contemplations, even though we take up for a few minutes, they raise the level of our consciousness, because the energy level of this contemplation is very high. It automatically lifts. It's not that we have capacity to lift that. Automatically the energy level of these slokas will lift our consciousness levels and transport us into a higher level of contemplative meditation and experience that energy and gracefulness, and for all that time of contemplation, the purity that descends into us, that manifests in us by the grace of God and the Shuddhi Mata. That is why these contemplations are taken up. So, please understand that any time we are bound by anything, we think as a jiva that we cannot get out of it. That very moment we should remember, I am the Bhasakatvam and that is the Bhasyam. I am the illuminator and that is the illuminator. The moment I recollect this knowledge, I illuminate and illuminator will not be touched by, bound by, imprisoned by, caged by, tethered by, even touched and influenced by the illuminator. It can never. I am the illuminator. If this can become our regular contemplative point, then we can immediately, instantly get out of the clutches of the egoistic identification with negativities, where the ego derives dream, pleasure and satisfaction. Then if we reject that, then with this contemplation, the great joy, pleasure, happiness and peace of that godliness will descend into us, which is incomparable with this petty, paltry, egoistic dream, pleasure and satisfaction. So let us focus on the illuminator and be as the illuminator. We will take up other things. Om Vagishwaraya Vidmahe, Hayagrivaya Dhimahi, Tanno Hayagriva Prachodayat.
Para